The Ardennes Shelf is not a place people come to be cheerful. It is a place people come to count things: fragments of hull, plating cataloged by alloy signature, impact craters mapped by yield, debris fields sorted by century of origin. I've been doing this work for 11 years. I know every square kilometer of the shelf's upper layer by the color of the slag. My crawler was parked on the ridge above the meridian scar when the fold transit bloom opened. You get the light first, a violet bruise in the upper atmosphere, there and gone in a second. Then the thermal signature on the crawler's rear panel. Then the contact ping from the nearest orbital platform, letting me know that whatever just arrived was not one of ours. I set down my calipers and looked up. There were 7 of them. Heavy-frame ships, needle-nosed at the bow with broad engine nacelles swept back like raptor wings. Old design. Not old the way a museum piece is old. Old the way something is that was built to last and never needed revision. The lead vessel was enormous. I estimated it at 4 kilometers, nose to stern, and I have been estimating hull lengths against horizon features long enough that my estimates are rarely wrong. They held station above the shelf at roughly 40 kilometers altitude and did not descend. The universal band opened 40 seconds later. The voice that came through the crawler speaker array had the particular quality of a translation engine. Slightly flat, consonants landing a fraction early, the pauses where cadence was being recalculated. It said the ships were the Varec Imperial Survey and Council Division, 6th Advance Wing, out of the Varec Heartworld Station at Cellorn. It said they had traveled 80 light years on a matter of considerable urgency. It said they were here to warn the inhabited worlds of the Sol system about a threat moving in from the outer rim. I looked at the shelf below me. The Ardennes Shelf is 312 kilometers long and roughly 60 wide. It was not always called the shelf. It earned the name from what the old defense batteries did to the terrain over the first 2,000 years of the preparation, when they were running live-fire calibration in what was then open country. The geography changed. The ridge I was parked on did not exist before the preparation. It is a berm of compressed and vitrified earth built up over 4,000 years of debris management. Below the berm, running in concentric arcs from the central monument marker down to the shelf's eastern lip, are the engagement rings. Every major contact this region has seen, catalogued. Every hull fragment above a certain mass limit has a marker beside it. Every marker has coordinates, a yield estimate, a date, and a faction tag. It is not a cemetery exactly. It is more like a ledger. I keyed the crawler's relay and patched the incoming signal to planetary grid. The grid response came in 3 seconds. Acknowledgement tone from Platform 7 Orbital North Ring, the nearest platform, currently crewed by 41. Then the secondary acknowledgement from the Ardennes Ground Control Node, which is staffed around the clock and has been for reasons I do not need to explain to anyone who has done this work long enough. Then the warship ping, 3 of them, not the closest in-atmosphere assets, but the 3 whose patrol arc brought them within clean relay distance. The grid does not show everything it has. It shows enough. The Varec's 6th wing went quiet for a moment. Then the translation engine said they were reading significant orbital and atmospheric assets. They acknowledged the presence of human defense infrastructure. Their council mission was not adversarial. They wished to speak to whoever held command authority for the Sol system. Ground control routed the connection to me. I have never entirely understood why ground control does this. I have asked twice. The answer both times was that the nearest continuously staffed human position during an unscheduled contact is the one that takes the call, and for 11 years on the Ardennes Shelf, that position has been mine. I'm not a diplomat. I'm not a defense officer. I catalog hull fragments and file reports. But the shelf is the shelf, and certain traditions are not questioned. I told the Varec's 6th wing that I was the available contact for Sol system and asked what they needed. It was a longer pause. The translation engine may have been struggling with the gap between what they expected and what they got. Then the voice said they had detected unusual stellar medium disturbances propagating inward from the galactic rim. The disturbances matched the approach signature of an entity classed the Varec Compact called the Horic Advance. The Horic were consuming force, not fleet-based, not territorial in any conventional sense, but progressive, systemic, and to the knowledge of the Varrock Compact, undefeated. They had consumed 7 inhabited systems in the prior 200,000 years. The Compact had been monitoring the advance for as long as records existed and had never seen it repelled. They had come to warn us, to give us time to relocate, if relocation was still possible, to offer what transit assistance the Compact could arrange. I'll let the silence sit for a moment. The wind off the shelf is constant and cold. It has a smell to it, mineral and faintly electric, which is the ozone the monument equipment produces when it cycles through its documentation pass. Every 6 hours, the marker arrays run a full field sweep and write the current state of the debris field to the archive. The sound it makes when the sweep passes over the eastern rings is a low hum you feel more in your chest than hear with your ears. The sweep was just finishing when I answered. I told the Varrock's 6th wing that I appreciated the warning. I told them the Sol system was familiar with the Horic advance. I told them that the advance had reached the outer boundary of Sol's influence zone approximately 206,000 years ago, and that engagement had been concluded approximately 203,000 years ago, and that the last documented Hora primary node had been broken down and its constituent material cataloged. Another long pause. I asked if they wanted the coordinates of the dead system. It is not in any of the current Varrock charts. I know this because the grid has a running comparison of charted versus uncharted systems, and the Horica's last known position is in a region the Varrock apparently never surveyed. I could share it if that was useful. The voice asked how he had done it. I told him honestly that I did not know the tactical particulars. I know the shelf. I know the eastern engagement rings, which date to the earliest phase of the advance's approach and contain hull fragments and other material from that period, all cataloged. I know that by the time the advance reached the inner boundary of Sol's defensive perimeter, humanity had been preparing for 60,000 years. I know that the preparation held. That is what I know. The voice was quiet for a long time after that. When it came back, it said that the Varrock Compact had 14 files on the Horic advance compiled over 190,000 years of observation. It said none of the files contained a record of a successful engagement. It said the files would need to be revised. I said that was probably a good idea. I offered to transmit the Ardennes archive documentation for the period in question. The archive is publicly accessible. It has been for 120,000 years in formats that update with the standard as the standard changes. I gave them the access string. There was a sound from the translation engine that I did not fully recognize. Not language exactly, more like a system recalibrating its parameters. Ground control flagged me. The 3 warships on patrol arc had adjusted course. Not aggressively, not in any way readable as hostile. They were repositioning to frame an escort corridor toward the outer Sol boundary. Standard protocol for an acknowledged non-hostile contact concluding its business. Clean, clearly signaled, no ambiguity. The Varrock ships would know what it meant. The 6th Wing's lead vessel began a slow orientation away from the shelf. The other 6 followed in formation. Disciplined. Whatever they were not disorganized. The translation engine opened one more time. It said, with what sounded like some care, that the Varrock Compact would update its stellar threat assessments. It said the Sol system's record in this matter would be entered into the Compact's archive. I thanked them for the visit. The fold transit blooms opened in sequence. 6 smaller ones first, then the lead ships, which turned the sky the color of a bruise from horizon to horizon for about 3 seconds. Then they were gone. I picked up my calipers and went back to the fragment I had been measuring. It was a section of Horic outer shell composite, 3rd contact period, roughly 203,000 years old. They are not common finds on the shelf. Most of the Horic material ended up in the northern ranges, where the final engagements were fought. But you find pieces on the shelf sometimes, carried here by the debris scatter. This one was about the size of my hand. Dense, dark, with a specific fracture pattern I had learned to recognize after years of handling it. I photographed it from 6 angles, tagged it with its location coordinates, and added it to the day's log. The Ardennes shelf is not a place people come to be cheerful. It is a place people come to count things, and to remember that the counting is why we are still here to do it. I went back to work.